Here we see Maggie sewing sections of a book. She is using linen thread. The tapes are also made of linen. She sews on one side of each linen tape and out the other. She also winds the linen thread into the stitch below for extra security. This method of sewing means that the book is very secure, it's very strong, and it's also very supple. It will bend so that it will open properly. At the end of the sections, the thread is tied off, and now she's using a knocking down stick in order to keep the sections flat so that there's no swell. Here Tony is pasting out half of an end paper. The decorative end paper is pasted to a white sheet. He's using wheat starch paste and a natural brush to make sure that the paste is extremely smooth and completely covers the paper. And he carefully attaches it to the decorative end, and it will then be hung up to dry and then put in the press to keep flat. He's now taking the end paper out of the press, checking to see that it's fine and that it's completely flat and that it hasn't stuck together. Now we're seeing a book which has gilt edges. This takes place after the end papers have been attached to the book, and then the book is then pressed again. The book spine is rounded and backed with a hammer. The boards are cut, and then the linen tapes are splayed out with a bodkin until they're very soft and treated with paste again to be laced onto the boards. The boards have to have holes punched in them and grooves made with a knife so that the tapes will lie nice and flat and not show when the book is covered. John is doing a leather onlay here. This involves cutting pieces out of very, very thinly pared leather, each individual piece cut out with a scalpel, and then it's laid on with paste and pressed in with a tool. It's again very labour intensive, but the design at the end is well worth it. To become a gold finisher, you really need to do a good few years training. John himself did 5-year apprenticeship, but it takes many more years than that before you're truly confident and accomplished at what you're doing. He has been doing the same thing for 40 years and is extremely fast and extremely good at what he does. Probably one of the very few great finishers left. Underneath the gold will be a thin layer of what we call glaire, which is made from egg albumen. Once the gold is laid on, the heated tools are then pressed into the leather again in exactly the same position. And once the design is complete, the leather will be cleaned off, leaving the gold design behind, we hope. The presses, as you can see, are very old wooden presses. They do the job beautifully. The book should be left there for at least a few days to press properly, ideally a few weeks. Everybody in this workshop is a very experienced craftsperson, and it's a wonderful craft. It's very satisfying. No book is the same, so you don't feel like you're doing the same thing day in, day out, because everything is slightly different. Papers react differently. Pieces of leather are all individual because they come from different animals. Even the weather can change what you're doing. You know, the weather will affect how quickly your end papers dry, how quickly the gold needs to be put on the book before your egg albumen glaire dries out, all sorts of things like that. So it's not as though you can do it automatically. You have to think about what you're doing.